how did you kind of build your career up as a leader?
I think, again, sales helps because you get daily feedback, okay? And when you're in sales, you know whether you had a good day or a bad day. It depends on how much did you sell or how many opportunities did you tee up that you might be able to conclude at a later stage. That was one very important learning for me. It is how you kind of work on yourself to adapt to a culture that is different than the previous culture that you've been dealing with.
How do you, as an executive, you're really focused on how do you kind of drive the team towards that next level or the next goal, and especially with Intel's really ambitious goals, of transforming the company. How do you balance that between, the need for innovation, but then the need to deliver? Like it's always somewhat, it would seem, in conflict, right? And it's almost your role as the executive to decide, how much are we pushing on the innovation side versus, the everyday work that is paying the bills in a sense for right now.
In tech, and it's not just Intel, it's other tech companies as well, is that usually there is more innovation than customers want. Okay, so this is a really interesting concept. So at the end of the day, my job is to understand what my customers want to achieve. So in sales, the ability to use your ears and your mouth in the relative proportion given to you is really important. You need to be really good in listening. And you need to really understand what is it that your customer wants to solve. What's the issue? What's the challenge they want to get rid of? Customers sometimes don't know what it takes to solve their problem. They might not know exactly the value proposition that you're pitching to them. So you need to take them on the journey. And this is where in sales, then very quickly you go from, I can't sell this transactionally. I need to sell this as a service, and I need to reach milestones. I need to reach outcomes that these customers can measure. It's different business model. It's a different system that you sell, a lot less hardware centric, much more services and software centric. So then you need different salespeople, you need different engineers.
When you hire people or for students that are interested in Intel, I guess two things. One, what do you think would be the opportunities of coming to start your career at a place like Intel right now? And then two, what do you look for in those individuals when you do make a hire? What are those characteristics that you've seen kind of point to success?
So firstly, I'm still involved in graduate hiring. I actually think it's super important. I've always been involved, but in particular in the last couple of years with COVID, I think it was even more important to be in touch with students, because I think your lives has been so much impacted, and the opportunities that you couldn't take because of lockdowns. I think it was important to keep my finger on the pulse. Also, my kids are your age, okay? So they had to go through this themselves. So that's number one. Number two, I think if you're interested to learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn, okay? And I will always find time to spend a couple of minutes with you if you want to have a one-on-one. No problem, happy to do that. I'm doing this already today. And then, think about what you want out of your career. For me, it was very clear. I wanted to have an international career, living in different countries, operating in different cultures, and that has truly worked for me. But think about this, I have this little saying here, and it really has worked for me. So plan your work your plan, and your plan will work. I believe in that, okay? So really be purposeful, think about it. And then if you want to go into tech, think about what type of tech. We talked right now about 5G and edge computing. I think that's a very interesting field. Security is an interesting field. I think with quantum computing, security will be disrupted. The way we manage security today will be obsolete. So there's a whole new life cycle in front of us there. Very interesting. AI, I think super interesting what you can do with that. And we touched a little bit on that. So think about it, read about it. Send me a note with questions. If you have questions, happy to help you out.
As someone that's very involved in building relationships, right? The pandemic has really fractured that, or, especially having more work from home. And so I think one thing that a lot of young people today, they always hear about the advice of, by being in the office, you get those small anecdotes or chances to bump into colleagues. By all regards, that's probably going to be less than it was in the past, no matter where it ends up as, more remote or not. But just what advice would you have now for building relationships with people, when you don't have a lot of those connections that are more organic in a sense?
Yeah, look, so I'm suffering because I don't have these physical interactions with people where we meet in person. Okay, for me that is still I still am craving for that. I do believe that virtual meetings can actually be super helpful because I can now have more in a day. Okay. My challenge with them is if they are too organized, if every meeting is half an hour long, that's not how real life works. Very often real life is a 2-3 minute conversation. I've actually started to set meetings up just for 10 minutes, okay? And just to have those type of conversations. So I do believe that the future of work is going to be hybrid. I think we're going to be a bit in the office, but also still continuing to work from home. When we work from home, let's make sure that not everything's an hour meeting. Let's try and go into smaller increments, but make sure that we build real connections with one another and that we know one another, okay? So for me, I've joined Intel 7 months ago, and I joined when we're still remote. It's not easy to join a company when you're remote. And for some of you that you are starting to work, that you had to do internships 100% remotely, very difficult. How do you become part of the culture? How do you understand the culture? I also think that if you're in STEM, and you're an engineer, well, how do you engineer without a lab? How do you engineer without a bench? Are you going to set one up in your garage? Do you have a garage? So, these are all real life problems that can only be fixed if we have a truly good hybrid setup. And so I think that's where this will develop. And I think we all have to do our part. Number one, feel comfortable going to an office, going to a lab, but also feel comfortable working from home and building these real engagements and interactions with our colleagues.